Welcome to another episode of today's Conversations on Leadership, powered by Life University. I'm your host, Dr. Gilles LaMarche, and what we do here is inspiring tomorrow's leaders today. And I'm so excited to have Dr. Simon Senzon with me today. Let me tell you a little bit about this guy. Simon is a social scientist, historian, philosopher, and yes, one of the most prolific authors in the chiropractic profession. With over 25 years of research on the history and philosophy of chiropractic, his work has resulted in more than 30 peer-reviewed papers, the publication of 18 volumes of chiropractic books, numerous articles and lectures, and a reputation as an internationally renowned chiropractic thought leader. And I can vouch for that. That man really is a great thought leader in our profession. Simon's eclectic and expansive knowledge is informed by his master's in philosophy from Goddard College, doctor of chiropractic degree from Sherman College, and his recently completed Ph.D. on the chiropractic profession undertaken at Southern Cross University. His Ph.D. thesis pioneers a novel analysis of the chiropractic identity literature, illuminating a new path forward for the future of chiropractic research. Simon is the founder of the Institute Chiropractic, TIC, through which he teaches chiropractors and chiropractic students worldwide a depth of context for the history and philosophy of chiropractic by utilizing the integral approach developed by Ken Wilber. In addition to his prolific writing and academic career, Simon is a practicing chiropractor specializing in network spinal analysis with his wife Susan in Asheville, North Carolina, where they live with their children just up the street from us here at Life University in Atlanta, or rather Marietta, Georgia. Dr. Simon, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. This is really fun, Joe.
It's a beautiful Friday, and I was reading an email that came from you earlier this week, and I got like super excited because it said the TIC Game. I was like, what the heck is the TIC Game? And then I read the bio and it said, Experience Chiropractic Philosophy in Action. And that's what got me excited. I got on the phone. I called our president, Dr. Brian McCauley. I said, hey, Brian, have you heard about this? He's like, well, yeah. He said, I was part of the committee when Simon was getting his PhD. So we had a great conversation. And that's sort of what led me to reach out to you and say, come on, today's chiropractic leadership, and tell us about this amazing program that you have developed and the power that that is going to produce to really bring chiropractors and chiropractic students to completely understand our philosophy and where we come from. So the show is yours, Dr. Simon. Go for it. Tell us about it.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's really been just this evolution of we rebuilt the website last year as a social learning network. That our Institute Chiropractic is really centered on courses and lectures and old archival footage of lectures from Sid to Reggie Gold. Arnaud Bernier gifted me a couple years ago boxes of all of his lectures going back to the 80s to preserve there. So we just have just all these incredible resources and interviews that I do. And then we turned it into a social network with an app, which is really accessible for people. But then we wanted to go even further and help people really embody the philosophy. So that's where the game came out. And the game is amazing. So we modeled it after B.J. Palmer's normal complete cycle, because I thought we don't just want to gamify the site just to do it as a thing. We wanted to make it a learning experience. So the cycle goes like this. When you build up points for different types of interactions on the site, and BJ had this really incredible insight way back in 1907, which was creation of the mental impulse in the brain cell gets transmitted through the nerves and then expressed as power and life and function at the tissue cell. So that's kind of the center of it, right? So you're learning for every action you do, whether you're creating new content like posting on your timeline or commenting on a blog or a course, that's a creation thing. You get points for that. And the points are called faux runs, which is another term that BJ invented called a unit of force. And he believed that these units of force, this like raw energy, would come into the body, and that would get transformed in the brain cell, combined with intelligence and expressed as the mental impulse. So we thought we'd take this term forerun and use it as our point system. So you get points for creating, you get points for transmission of knowledge, which is just learning. If you go read a blog, you get points. If you take a course and learn a lesson, you get more points. So there's a transmission point system. And then there is the expression system. So when you reply, right, and that's your action. So, but look, thinking at it philosophically, in BJ's language, we're creating a thought, a mental impulse that will be expressed in life in the tissue cell. But when you really expand the philosophy outwards, you're literally creating thoughts that you express as language, you express as communication. So the information coming in as learning is building up within you. You're building these points as foreruns, so you're getting to measure what you're kind of acquiring. So it's a way for you to really get that it's not just the life that's being expressed and the information and food and stuff from the environment that your physical body is learning, but this is how BJ thought of it. You're getting these thought flashes. You're getting these ability to express your ideas and your insights. So as you increase in the game, you go up the levels of the normal complete cycle. And that's how we modeled it. So BJ, he had this 31-step cycle starting with universal intelligence, which steps down to the innate intelligence, then the mental realm, and then it goes into the brain cell where this transformation happens, and then it gets expressed, and then comes all the way back to this cycle. And so step 1 is universal intelligence, step 31 is universal intelligence.
Yeah,
so
because that's the whole complete cycle.
That's the whole cycle, right? So everyone that starts the game, you start at universal intelligence. And when you complete the game, you get different points. So when you get to 50 points, you go to level 2, innate intelligence. So that's your individuality being embodied in the game. Then level 3, your mental intelligence. That's 100 points. And then you get to the mental realm. That's the next step, right? And that's really where the game is taking place, in the mental realm. We're not really taking place in the physical. Although I'm working on a philosophy of the TIC game right now, which is going to come out in the next week, which is really a comprehensive way to apply and understand the philosophy in a whole new way. Because really, when you're embodying it, you need to get 7,500 points to get to the top level, right? So it's going to take people some time to do these interactions. But when you think about it, we're creating a thought field. We're creating a culture in chiropractic. We're creating a learning space. So within TIC, it's kind of a microcosm of the profession. So the idea is, as people express their comments and their replies, and they learn about the facts and the history and the philosophy, and then they interact with each other, we're building a community of people who understand the same basic ideas. And the more we comment with each other, the more we add new content, we're building the complexity of this self-organizing learning network. So just like your body is expressing its intelligence through function, an intellectual field, a learning network like we're creating here, is being expressed through the thoughts that are being created in your brain cell. So you can actually track learning through the steps of the normal complete cycle and sort of embody it in your own life, but apply it to making the profession better through your own experience, your own learning, your own interactions. So it's really exciting, I think.
And I can just imagine when you get to the depth of that. Of course, I've been a Green Book reader for like almost 5 decades now. So I've learned pieces here or there, and I always brought that into my day-to-day interactions with my patients when I was in practice. And I would tell you, I still use it every day here as an executive at Life University. But for those who have not been really steeped deeply into this philosophy, what's your vision of what happens to them once they understand? It transforms practices. Like, in my opinion, it would completely transform practices, but you've been working at this and you've gone at it so deeply. What's your impression of the impact that could have on the profession, number one, on humanity, number two.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the questions people have always asked me about, marketing this tick that I've created. Like, how can people get the value of it? And to me, it's this deepening of your roots.
Mm.
The more you really understand these ideas, the more it just comes across in everything you do, from that new patient you meet to the person you meet in the grocery store, to that adjustment you're giving, to interacting with colleagues. And really, that's where it comes across in an important way. And with my PhD thesis, the main thing I focused on was the identity literature in the profession, and how many errors there are in our peer-reviewed literature about the history, about the philosophy. And one of our missions at TIC is to correct that, to really create a large body of people in the profession who understand the same facts that are accurate and that understand the philosophy. And then we could correct the misconceptions in the literature and in the world so that chiropractic can be understood for what it is. Bill Harper said, chiropractic is the science of existence. And,
Mm.
he got that from studying D.D. Palmer, and so I just feel like the more people really understand it, the more they could embody it. And we've got all these rare texts. One of the references that I put to the blog announcing the TIC game is I pulled out just the freshman text from Stevenson's textbook, which is where he really explains the normal complete cycle. And we have a learning library at TIC. So you can just right there on the app, you can learn about it and say, I want to understand this more, and just hit a button and you've got freshman text Stevenson's and, articles by B.J. Palmer. So our idea is, how can we share this information with people in bite sizes where they could integrate it like faux runs, right? Take that one bit of information, ruminate it, build on it, interact some more, learn some more, and then it starts to grow.
In my conversation with Dr. McCauley, he said something to me that I think that you had discovered. He said the majority of the literature in chiropractic is based on things that were written by a handful of authors, and a lot of it was not even true. But
Yeah.
over the years, over the decades, that was the seed. Those were the seeds, and therefore the seedlings that continued to expound information that wasn't true. And the fact that you discovered that was pretty amazing to me. And I'd love for you to just chat about that maybe briefly.
Sure. Yeah. So what I did for my PhD thesis, and the Southern Cross University gave me the Chancellor's Award for Outstanding Thesis, which is the highest academic achievement you could get in
Congratulations.
Australia. Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's really difficult to achieve, and there's lots of reasons why. The thesis is just very complex. But in a nutshell, I looked at the peer-reviewed papers that talk about our identity, right? Who are we? Should we be more like medicine? Should we follow just evidence-based protocols of clinical trials? Should we be more philosophical and not do any research? Or, there's just a wide spectrum in the literature about who we are, what we should be. So we pulled out every peer review paper we could find on that. That was my research, and I had some people sort of helping as my sort of team. And then I created a network of those. So then I looked at, what do all those papers reference? Where are their references, right? How are they getting their ideas? And then I built what you call a citation network. So you get a hub of all these core papers, and then you link it to all the papers that they are referencing. And then you get to see how they're all starting to reference the same kind of papers. And I ended up building this huge network of 5,280 peer-reviewed papers. And then was able to, there's all these algorithms you can do to determine which papers have the most influence on the network. So which ones are cited the most, which ones sort of are the kind of the ones that steer the information. So I pulled out the top 31 most influential papers on the identity literature, and then did a critical analysis to see, really an objective analysis to see how good are they. Do their references support their statements? Do their premises support their conclusions? Do they have any instances of bias? And I had 5 people on my committee of PhDs, an osteopath, a nurse practitioner, a medical doctor, Brian McCauley. I had a wide spectrum to keep me honest and keep me unbiased, right? So they kind of oversaw to make sure I was being objective, because I brought my own biases to these papers I'd been reading for decades, right?
As we always do, right? I mean,
Yeah, so I basically had to take each paper and sort of put it under a microscope and pretend I was a biologist looking at just one little piece, right? One paragraph. Is this objective? Is this logical? Does it make sense? Is it supported? And what I found was there was a large part of the most influential papers that just failed. They just were their scholarship was rated at either critically flawed or fatally flawed. Their bias levels were rated at critically biased, and some of them fatally biased. And these are the most cited influential papers in the literature. And part of that is just what you said. Like, someone would say something like, oh, there's no evidence for subluxation. So I'd be like, okay, that's your claim. What's your reference? All right, I referenced this paper from 1997 by Joe Keating. All right, let's go read that paper. Oh, Keating said there's no gold standard for subluxation research, and he has no reference for it. Huh.
So then comment, anecdotal.
Right. It's just a comment that someone cited as a fact, that 10 other papers cited that as a fact, and then 20 more papers cited those as a fact. And then the whole network becomes based on these incorrect facts, bias, just poor scholarship. So I really showed that our peer review process on our identity literature is really not up to the standard of science, which is unfortunate, true. So one of our big focuses at TIC is not just to teach this to our members, but to use it as a real institute, the Institute Chiropractic, and generate research. So my goal is to publish several, maybe dozens of peer-reviewed papers out of this research in top-tier academic journals outside of chiropractic. So it's gonna really kind of shift the direction of the profession once we start changing the literature and developing this base of people just playing the TIC game and learning the facts.
Well, I love everything that you're doing. Congratulations on all the hard work you've been doing for a few decades now, and certainly, achieving your PhD and really doing it on a topic that is of great importance for humanity. How can people find out more as we wrap up this episode today, Dr. Simon? How can people find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, you can just go to the site, institutechiro.com. And you could learn more. You could join as a member. You could reach out to us, join our mailing list, and you'll be in the loop.
Well, thank you for taking time to be with me on this beautiful Friday morning. And I look forward to seeing you live real soon. Any closing comments for our audience today, Dr. Simon?
Just keep doing what you do. You are changing the world, one spine at a time.
One nervous system at a time. You got that right. Thank you so much.
You bet.